Hello, warriors. Welcome to the You Movement. I am B. And as promised, I said I would give updates in real time of what an awakening is like. And at the present moment, I've been bedridden for the last 3 days with a terrible intestinal purge in all directions. It has been violent and uncomfortable. I do understand that there is a bug that's circulating, and it's made its way into my home, and all of us have been taken down that live here with me. So whilst this physical purge is happening, it's been an interesting journey facing the emotions that are coming up with it. And I've been experiencing some anger, some confusion, feeling lost, feeling doubt, feeling a whole gamut. It's almost like somebody's just dumped out like 52 card pickup and right, okay, let's just look at everything. Every other little thing that's left in there is coming up for review. So I don't know if this is part of the integration process. Although I've watched many videos recently talking about that feeling of being completely lost and confused and the pointlessness of it all that occurs in the end stages of an awakening, because it's kind of like ego's last stand to hold on to some sort of story of some kind. And my ego is it seems to not be going down without a fight of some kind. And so I've tried a couple of things that I don't recommend doing. Being trapped in bed, I tried to distract myself by watching movies. Now, that's been really challenging for me to do since my awakening, because I used to love movies and with a background in acting, I love big theatrical epic stories. I've always loved the good versus evil kind of stories. Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie of all time, and Harry Potter's and the Avengers, and this quest of good versus evil. But I can't watch heavily violent movies anymore. So I tried watching historical dramas, and those proved to be too violent in a lot of ways, even though all I saw was the suffering. All I saw was the suffering, and it got me thinking more and more about suffering, and the suffering that I personally have endured, the suffering that so many out there also endured. They say the path to enlightenment is a path through suffering, through actually experiencing suffering. And I'm not going to argue with wiser people than myself. But it's just so heartbreaking for me And I don't know if this is like an autistic thing. It quite very well could be. Or it's just a me thing, like on a spiritual level thing, that I was just born. I've always known, the difference between right and wrong in regards to, and I think instinctively, I would like to think instinctively, we all know that as children. We all can sense through, we're born with fully intact sensory systems, and we can sense when things are amiss. Instinctually, we have all these reflexes, as well as our emotive system, and there's just a knowing that, certain things aren't right. And so when you're a child and you're experiencing horrific things like abuse, or, being raged at and feeling threatened, and instinctually, even though you're a child, it's wrong, but you don't have any power to do anything about it. And I've been reading again, trying to course correct myself. The book, and I've got it here, When the Body Says No, by Gabor Mate. And this is my second round of reading this book. And I highly, highly recommend this book if you have physical illnesses, if you have a lot of trauma. This book kind of validates your experience as a child of being put in a situation where your natural instincts were to say no. Your natural physiological response was to say no to what was happening to you, but you couldn't. That was overwritten. Saying no would have resulted in a greater degree of abuse or neglect, or fear of actual survival, inability to survive. And that's why it may trigger, for some in their older years, as trauma's resurfacing, it might trigger a fear of death, that you're going to die, because as a child, if you're ignored, as an infant, if you were ignored and left to cry, you're imprinted. And I was discussing this with another one of our warriors. You're imprinted to think that your very survival is at risk. And when you're older, even as a toddler or a little bit older, if you are defiant against the abuse, instinctually that you can't move out. You can't get a job at the age of 5. You can't. There's not another house to go to live in. I can remember as a young child, I used to run away to the garage until I would get too cold or too hungry. And I would be trapped in there, knowing I didn't have an escape, trying as a 5-year-old to think about where I could go. But there wasn't anywhere to go. And so my very survival was at threat if I didn't repress and try my very hardest to shut down that natural instinctive response to being raged at and being hit and being mocked. And stuffing down the suffering became my coping strategy from a very young age. And when we stuff down our suffering and stuff down our natural impulses to be angry and our natural impulses to fight back because we can't, it leaves a long legacy of physiological responses, psychological responses that lead to very detrimental health conditions over time. And so that's why I wanted to just recommend that you get the book When the Body Says No, because when my awakening began, that pre-awakening phase that I was in, my body definitely was finally saying no for me. I was so ill, and I thought death was imminent. Even though I was only in my 40s, the conditions that I was racking up, you know, especially with the early Alzheimer's test that I failed and my low oxygen levels, I knew I was in a stage where I had to evolve or die, and so I set out to start listening to my body and healing all the suffering that was trapped in my body, not knowing what would come up and come out. And it's turned into the longest and hardest couple of years of my life in learning how to heal, learning that process through the suffering to get into a higher level of enlightenment. And I wouldn't wish an awakening on anyone. Like, I really wouldn't in some regards, because you know, the mind is a trickster, and the mind says to me, you know, life was better in that illness. It was better before, because I wasn't aware of the degree of suffering and sorrow and grief and anger and pain that was trapped inside of me. I wasn't conscious, and that's what an awakening is bringing the unconscious into the conscious. And why would we want to do that when we've spent our entire lives trying to pretend that everything's okay, and trying to pretend that you've got all your shit together, when the reality is nobody does. Because the very fabric of the family and that is within the environment of society as a whole is not set up to be consciously aware, and it's not set up to be supportive of this process of awakening, which is why it's so incredibly painful, because it's like collapsing reality around you, and so much loss, utter destruction of the life that your ego had created and concocted for yourself. And your ego did that to keep you alive. And then the awakening process is about dying before death. And in so doing, you face again all of those fears that you carried with you about your own ability to survive in the world, that are embedded in you. It's not a conscious choice. Trauma happens, and it's embedded into your physiology, into your nervous system, which holds the memory of it like data. It just it's not something that people just get over, but the world pretends that there's so much pretending. And that's why awakenings are so utterly massive, because it's not just you as an individual that is releasing coping mechanisms and releasing all these egoic labels and structures that kept you safe. It's looking at the entire world around you and realizing that it's not just you that was playing pretend, because you were never allowed to be your authentic self. To do so would have put you in harm's way. So you don't even know who your authentic self is, and stepping into your authentic self is hard enough. But then it becomes even harder, because as you try to step out of family dynamics and social constructs, those very family dynamics and constructs, it seemingly like don't want you to break free. It's like they talk about the matrix, and as you are attempting to break free and be in your own authentic self for the first time in your life, you meet resistance and hostility and bullying and criticism and all of this stuff to try to pull you back down into unconsciousness, into suffering. And it is like this war that is waged on so many levels, spiritually, but as well even in your 3D world. This quest to live, to actually be able to live. And for the first time, it's like I've tapped down into some of that anger that has been so long repressed inside of me. And it's not bubbling up like a volcano. It's not. It's observing all of these emotions as they come up, even though they're very overwhelming. It's just a conversation that I'm allowing myself to have and listen for the first time, because anger is not an emotion that I have been comfortable with, because I've not practiced at it. My response was to learn over the years to become a very people-pleasing, lack of boundaries, and negating self. So that's the coping mechanism that I had taken on in my childhood. I was very defiant, but that defiant energy that once came, that inner rebel that once came, I shut down. And so I've been listening. As we're supposed to sit and observe these energies as they come, regardless of what they are. And I am angry, and I am sad. I'm sad for all of the people that have suffered so needlessly. It's like I just see suffering, not just my own. I see and understand the suffering of all of the warriors that I'm in contact with, all of the stories that have been shared with me, all of the pain. I'm reminded of I'm reminded of the story of Buddha, who I don't know if you know the history of Buddha, but Buddha was raised in a castle where his father wanted to keep him protected from all suffering, so that he never experienced it. So his world was perfection. And he snuck out of the castle because he was not allowed to go outside of the castle, his own personal Garden of Eden, so to speak. And of course, curiosity always gets the better of us. And it's a good thing, but curiosity leads us down sometimes a dark path before we get elevated back up into the light. And when he snuck out of the castle, he saw poverty, he saw suffering, he saw the human condition. And my interest all along has been in understanding suffering from the perspective of trauma, and trying to find, for the last more than 30 years, the paths out of suffering, what works and what doesn't work. And I've tried everything, and I've looked in an assortment of interesting places, as well as mainstream places, as well as alternative places. So the quest has always been get out of suffering, and I was willing to do and try anything, whether it was numbing through pharmaceuticals, whether it was unhealthy attachments through cigarette and relationship, whether it was healthy processes of every type of counseling under the sun I have done over the last 30 years, every type. The one type of counseling I do highly recommend is somatic counseling, because it comes back to the body, the body holding on to the trauma. And to say that we as a humanity don't have a massive problem that is at times so overwhelming for me to observe, because even in the individual trying to escape and break free, the very fact that society and other family attack the person for trying to break free shows that they themselves are propping up a system of abuse and gaslighting and not taking stock to look at this legacy that we just keep perpetuating from generation to generation. And it's beyond overwhelming. It's beyond overwhelming when you start to peel back the layers of suffering, and there's just more and more and more. It goes beyond any one individual, because no individual is raised in a vacuum. No individual is separate from all else. No individual is truly an individual. There is a collective, and so within a collective, if any one individual is suffering, that has environmental and emotional and all these other interconnectednesses at play that go back historically in time for long periods of time, that the collective as the whole needs to address. And I've been in deep prayer while I've been bedridden, asking for guidance on how any one of us can overcome this degree of suffering, the degree of evil that has been present in people. And it's like there's a deep sickness that is embedded in all kinds of structures and systems that, as long as we all pretend is normal and fine, will never be addressed. And so it takes each individual to learn how to say no, and to learn to say that suffering is unacceptable. That is not the way that I'm going to live my life. That is, and in so doing, it's facing your very mortality to be able to break free of a structure and a system that you've been embedded with your whole life. So that's why awakenings are incredibly difficult, brutal, a brutal process of freeing yourself over and over and over again from your own thought processes, your own attachments, because we have no power or control over others. We can only erect boundaries and walk away from toxic situations to protect ourselves within a sea of mistruths, as we fight a battle waged in this internal landscape for your very right to exist as yourself, as your authentic self. And along this path, there are many times that you feel totally abandoned and lost, even to spirit. It has been hard for me to hold on to hope, even though inside of me, I know certain truths, and truths you know by how they feel, not by what they sound like, or it's a deep feeling within you is truths. And I've always been a truth teller in my life, or silence. As a child, I would have told the truth defiantly, and I learned to become silent over the years. So learning to speak truths again has been the greatest act of defiance in my whole life. Because that's what it is. Speaking your truth and being your truth is the greatest act of defiance of your entire life. But it comes down to life or death if you don't. Because if you don't, this book will tell you how many people die early deaths because they never learned that they had the right to say no. They never learned that they had the right to be themselves. They never learned. And in this book, they talk about an Australian study where they were discussing people's 5 greatest regrets upon an early deathbed. And one of those was not speaking their truth, pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't, and holding all that emotion in, because when we hold it all in, it burns us from the inside out. It makes us sick. So sorry today's video is a little bit depressing, but awakenings are a little depressing, or a lot depressing. I don't know if how long this is going to last. This last round, it's new moon energy, which is always particularly challenging for me lately. So I just want to come out here and say my truths. So if you're at home in an energy of overwhelm because of the own suffering that you have experienced in your life that's starting to surface, and you have to learn how to reparent that inner self now, to help facilitate your own spiritual maturation, or you're overwhelmed at the struggle and the family dynamics because it's just been, the prime family season where people feel a sense of obligation to go spend time with family. So maybe you're feeling really triggered or really isolated and alone because you don't have family anymore. And that's because you're desperately trying to be you and protect yourself and be healthy and create healthy boundaries. Or maybe as society as a whole, you're looking around and you're feeling like, I don't fit in. Where do I fit in? Why does it have to be like this? Why are we tolerating all this suffering and systems that aren't actually helping people get healthy? A lot of our structures are to keep people exactly where they are, not to get people to elevate to new levels of conscious awareness, because power is derived from keeping you in a state of feeling like authority is always someone outside of you, as opposed to being your own authority as as one of God's children. If you don't resonate with the term God, then, part of the universe. You are the hierarchical structure is one that keeps people subjugated. And so when you are going through an awakening and you're awakening to the reality that you have your own divine power, that too it can be overwhelming. So wherever you're at, my point being is wherever you're at on your awakening and with whatever you're facing, you're not alone. Let me be an example of what the collective, my collective, of those that are awakening in this wave with me. And if you watch this later on, whenever you're drawn to it, spirit will guide the videos to the right people at the right time. I do have faith in that. You're not alone. It is a process, and I guess the remembrance that I need today, as well as everyone else out there needs today, is that this too shall pass. This too has to pass, because the law of impermanence demands it. Nothing is allowed to be always stagnant. It must change. What it will change into, I don't know. Hopefully, the more that I just allow myself to be the witness as what is guided to the suffering, the more I will transmute it, alchemize it, and clear it. And that's all any of us can do. That's the power that we have within us. It is to heal us. It is to love us through the suffering, and in loving us and showing compassion to us, we develop a greater degree of compassion for everyone else outside of us. In facing my own darkness, in facing my own pain and my own trauma, I have even more empathy for those outside of me, even for those that have perpetrated pain towards me. I have empathy for them, because as Jesus said, they know not what they do. They're not consciously, on some degree, perhaps, many might say, narcissistic people are aware of the pain and suffering that they cause. On some level, yes, they are. On another level, they're not, because on a spiritual level, maybe on an egoic level, they're aware of the pain and the suffering that they cause, and they derive a sense of power and pleasure out of it. But at a soul level, they have no idea the soul murder that they're doing to themselves, and as a collective, therefore, to all, including themselves, when the cruelty that they do, it's not without consequence. There's the law of consequence. There's certain fundamental universal laws at play that go beyond the scope of the limited perspective of the ego. As much as ego would like to have its last say and its last stand, God will win in the end. Spirit, what will be, however you want to say it, it is out of our control. It is out of our control. What is in our control is our ability to process through the suffering as a witness. That the more we witness, the more we transmute. That is all we can do, is hold ourselves in gentleness. So I'm sending out all of my love and gentleness, and may you also hold yourself in love and gentleness. Peace out.